After nearly 2 years, Robert Mueller has finally submitted his report to the Attorney General of the United States regarding Russian collusion and the Trump administration and President Trump. What did he find? We'll dive into the results and the media reaction. Also, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is actually upset that Congress may vote on her resolution. Seriously? We'll look at that plus a whole lot more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, first up, of course, is the Mueller investigation. Special Counsel Robert Mueller finally submitted his report on Friday afternoon to Attorney General William Barr. Okay, this is the investigation that's gone on nearly 2 years, and it was actually in the making well before that, as President Trump was actually still running for president. If you recall, this is all based on an opposition research paper, this dossier that you've heard about, that was commissioned by Hillary Clinton and her supporters and the Democrat Party. And that, all of a sudden, once Trump was elected, became evidence. It was circulated around the FBI and other parts of the government, and that became the basis for this special counsel investigation. And we're going to dive into what the Attorney General found in reviewing the report. But here's the key finding, and I just want to summarize it here. I'll put this up on the screen here. William Barr said, "The special counsel's investigation did not find that the Trump campaign or anyone associated with it conspired or coordinated with Russia in its efforts to influence the 2016 presidential election." All right, so we're going to dive into this a little more, okay? Because it's just fascinating how much money, how much resources were spent on something that should not have been investigated in the first place. You have to have credible evidence to be suspicious and open an investigation. And in a political opposition research paper is not credible evidence. So diving into this, here is what Barr, in his letter to the heads of the judiciary committees of both the House and Senate, here's what he said. "This report explains that the special counsel and his staff thoroughly investigated allegations that members of the presidential campaign of Donald J. Trump and others associated with it conspired with the Russian government in its efforts to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election or sought to obstruct the related federal investigations." In the report, the special counsel noted that in completing his investigation, he employed 19 lawyers who were assisted by a team of approximately 40 FBI agents, intelligence analysts, forensic accountants, and other professional staff. The special counsel issued more than 2,800 subpoenas, executed nearly 500 search warrants, obtained more than 230 orders of communication records, issued almost 50 orders authorizing use of pen registers, made 13 requests to foreign governments for evidence, and interviewed approximately 500 witnesses. All right, so in Mueller's report, which the Attorney General will decide if it's made public and released to Congress, when all of that will happen. But he summarized it. Basically, Mueller broke his report into two sections, okay? One deals with the aspect of Russia interference in the U.S. election for 2016 and whether Russia colluded with the Trump campaign in order to influence the election. So that's number one. Number two is this whole idea of obstruction of justice by President Trump. Did he try to impede the investigation or hide the fact that he colluded with Russia, obstruct justice? So those are the two parts. So let's dive into number one. In number one, there's kind of two aspects to Russia interference with the election and possible collusion. One is a disinformation campaign, and one is hacking. And here's what Barr summarized to Congress on those aspects. The first involved attempts by a Russian organization, Internet Research Agency, IRA, to conduct disinformation and social media operations in the United States, designed to sow social discord, eventually with the aim of interfering with the election. The second element involved the Russian government's efforts to conduct computer hacking operations designed to gather and disseminate information to influence the election. The special counsel found that the Russian government actors successfully hacked into computers and obtained emails from persons affiliated with the Clinton campaign and Democratic Party organizations and publicly disseminated those materials through various intermediaries, including WikiLeaks. All right. So in those two aspects, Mueller brought charges against Russian nationals and corporations, other entities, military officers. But in each of those situations, he found that no one in the Trump campaign or President Trump or anyone associated with the campaign was involved with Russia in those aspects to influence the election. There was no collusion whatsoever, according to the Mueller investigation. All right. The next aspect was on obstruction of justice by Donald Trump. And in this aspect, Mueller got evidence, gathered evidence, interviewed people, and kind of just presented the evidence to the Attorney General. He didn't draw any conclusions, whether he found evidence for or against or whatever. He just presented that part of it to the Attorney General and let the Attorney General and the rest of the Justice Department analyze it to see if charges should be brought. So based on that, William Barr wrote this in his letter. After reviewing the special counsel's final report on these issues, consulting with the department officials, including the Office of Legal Counsel, and applying the principles of federal prosecution that guide our charging decisions, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein and I have concluded that the evidence developed during the special counsel investigation is not sufficient to establish that the president committed an obstruction of justice offense. So there's the summary right there. No obstruction of justice. And again, the main meat of the investigation, Russia collusion, he found that neither the Trump campaign nor anyone associated with the Trump campaign conspired or colluded with Russia to influence the 2016 presidential election, which is what the Democrats have based their whole, and the media have based the whole last 3 years on, that Donald Trump was an illegitimate president because he colluded with Russia to interfere in the election, to influence it, to push it his way. And Mueller found that that was absolutely not true. There's no basis in that. The Trump campaign, not Donald Trump, not anyone associated with the campaign, colluded with Russia. So how does the media react to this? Well, let's just take a look. Here's a clip from last year, basically March of last year, in which Chris Matthews over at MSNBC is talking about Trump and how he describes him.
Trump Watch, Thursday, March 15th, 2018. I think of Donald Trump as the Titanic and Robert Mueller as the iceberg.
All right, so Trump is the Titanic and Mueller is the iceberg. And here's what Matthews says is going to happen.
What was that terrible grinding sound, the passengers wonder? What was that tearing at the hull? Well, tonight we got the word that the ship and iceberg have made contact. It's now a matter of time whether the great ship stays afloat or, as we sang at camp, goes to the bottom of it. Something tells me when it comes to escaping disaster on the HMS Trump, it's not going to be women and children first.
All right, so Trump's going down. He has met his match. He's met his match with the iceberg of Mueller. But here is Chris Matthews just this weekend, and look at his reaction and the look on his face.
How can the president be pointed to as leading in collusion with Russia, of aiding a Russian conspiracy to interfere with our elections, if none of his henchmen, none of his children, none of his associates have been indicted? At best, it was a RICO situation where he was giving orders to people to do stuff with the Russians. If none of them were indicted, how can he be blamed? I'm just questioning. That's my big one.
All right, Trump was pointed to. He talks about Trump being pointed to. Well, he was pointed to based on a fake dossier, an opposition research report. So no wonder with the media and the Democrats all pointing to Trump, of course he's going to be the target of this investigation. It doesn't mean that any of the accusations are true. It doesn't mean this investigation has merit. And just because the findings don't come out how you like it, it doesn't mean that the process was wrong. And the stunned look is just absolutely priceless. But there's more. Joy Reid over at MSNBC was spinning like conspiracy theories and talking with her guests. And here's how part of that went down.
Are you on the cynical side with me, or are you on the optimistic side with Nick?
Is Trump's flunky going to release a report that might be damaging to his sugar daddy? I don't think so. I don't even know why we think that Barr isn't the one who stopped the investigation. Well, this is a 22-month-long investigation. Barr's been on the scene for a month, and now we're done? That doesn't strike anybody as odd?
So that's just bizarre. That's just very, very strange. But here's Rachel Maddow over at MSNBC, who, was pulled away from a vacation. She has, it looks like she has tears in her eyes trying to digest what just happened with the Mueller investigation.
Not since the 1700s has there been a high-ranking government official who was investigated for potentially being in the thrall of a foreign power. It's certainly never happened to a president. Are we going to find out what Robert Mueller found out when he investigated that core issue?
Yes, so there you have it. So Mueller found that Trump did not conspire with the Russians. He didn't collude. So regardless if this is the first investigation of a president basically ever, guess what? It came up with nothing. So everything the Democrats and the media have based their prime opposition, their prime talking point that Trump is such a bad guy is absolutely false. They don't have it anymore. So they're going to have to move on to something else to attack him because this is basically dead. No obstruction of justice, no collusion with Russia. So let's go ahead. We'll move on to and talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez because if you remember, she presented this Green New Deal, this sweeping resolution to present to Congress. She has a Senate sponsor. It was big fanfare and the media and the Democrats, 2020 candidates are all on board and everything. But the whole idea of presenting a resolution to Congress is so that they can vote on it and say, you know what, this is the way to go. This is awesome. We are on board with it. And now all of a sudden that there might actually be a vote, she's freaking out a little bit. Here's a tweet that she posted that kind of shows her reaction. The GOP's whole game of wasting votes in Congress to target others on the record for legislation they have no intent to pass is a disgrace. Stop wasting the American people's time, plus learn to govern. Our jobs aren't for campaigning, and that's exactly what these bluff votes are for. All right, so as you can see, she's referring to another tweet below from Paul Kane, who's a congressional reporter for the Washington Post. And here's what he tweeted, if you can read that. Senate Republicans show vote on Green New Deal as part of a broader effort to elevate AOC and new liberal stars. The NRSC, that's the National Republican Senatorial Committee, now tracks potential Senate candidate vote percent with AOC, just like Pelosi. Okay, so for one thing, it's nice that this is a reporter and he's giving his kind of 2 cents on strategy and stuff rather than just reporting the news. And I kind of like actually that the NRSC is going to tie, AOC votes to other Democrats. But this whole idea that she doesn't want to vote. Now, Pelosi has said that she's not going to bring it up in the House, even though, Ocasio-Cortez is a House member, but Mitch McConnell wants to bring it up in the Senate, and there's some really interesting reaction to it. Here's a couple tweets. This one is from Adam Trahan. He says, this has to be the first time for a sitting congressperson has ever advocated for not holding a vote on their own ideas. Matt Whitlock adds, seems odd to introduce legislation with lots of fanfare if you don't want it to receive a vote. So, it's just really bizarre. But that's kind of our weekend in news right there. Mueller dominated. William Barr's, analysis is, being just combed through. And eventually we'll get to see the full report. But that's our show for today, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us. Please subscribe. Add your comments below, and I'll address as many as I can. Thanks a lot. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-Minute News Hour.